What's going on, everybody? DJ Caveman. We're here on another episode of The Porch. This week we're talking about The Manor, which is a dark tale of a mental patient who gets released early, goes on a little vacation with the family, and dark shit happens. As always, we have Tom Denucci on the porch with us.
What's up, Daryl?
What's going on?
Good to be back on the porch.
Indeed.
I'm excited to talk about this one, man. We had a lot of fun making The Manor. You might hear me slip a couple times and call it Anders Manor. That's because that was the original title for a long time. Right back to when I first got pitched it by the original producers. Going to get into that whole backstory. And this is one of those unique tales where the movie about the movie is almost as interesting as the film itself. It's one of those things where, God, I wish we had documentary cameras rolling the whole time, because this would have made a great behind-the-scenes kind of tale, because it's a real unique story of a couple of guys who have families and day jobs and literally were as far removed from their dreams of making a movie as possible. They had kind of, put together this script and against all odds kind of came together and made this feature film that got picked up by Lionsgate and got a distribution deal, got put out there, had some great names in it. So it's a really great success story about like what you can do when you take your idea and you just don't quit, and you use a lot of unique approaches to kind of creatively get some funds together and rub two sticks together, make that fire.
Right.
So that's what Anders Manor. See, I did it again. I already did it. That's what The Manor is all about. So I'm excited to talk about the backstory and dive into all that.
Lots of familiar faces on this one. Some of our favorite wrestlers that have been in past movies of yours.
Yeah, we do. We've got Mike Bennett's in this movie. This is kind of one of the first roles that Mike really gets to kind of show off his array of skills in front of the camera. He can do a lot of physical stuff. He's also very funny guy. A lot of comedy in there. And also, of course, Kevin Nash.
Kevin Nash
is in the movie, who WWE Hall of Famer. For those of you checking out the show, if you don't know who Kevin Nash is, well, he was a WWE champion, WCW champion, creator of the New World Order, one of the baddest wrestlers in that era, a sure star, Hall of Famer, and one of these guys who, we hear about wrestlers that transitioned into movies. Obviously, the first thing you think of The Rock. And then the second guy, you think of Hulk Hogan. He did a lot of movies back in the day.
Right, John Cena.
But believe it or not, Kevin Nash was like one of the first. Kevin Nash was in that Punisher movie that they did not too long ago. He had a really great fight scene in that movie with Thomas Jane. So it's one of those things where Kevin Nash was actually, we could go all the way back to the Ninja Turtles movie. A lot of people don't know this. Kevin Nash was Super Shredder.
Oh, shit.
He was the guy in the costume at the end who kicks the shit out of all the Ninja Turtles, and they have to finally beat him at the end. He's the boss at the end of the video game, so to speak, in the Ninja Turtles movie. So he's been in Hollywood, bouncing around for a long time, even before he was a star as a wrestler. So it was great to work with Kevin Nash. Always one of those fun situations when, I can literally remember being 10 years old and watching him win the world title. As a little kid, loved wrestling, and now here I was, working on a movie, producing with it, picking him up at the airport and, bringing him to the hotel and getting to chat with him. And I had already done a couple of movies with him, so, we had a little bit of a rapport together, and, great guy. We're going to talk a little bit about him later. But this was a really cool cast, and we're going to kind of talk about it. I think it makes sense to just start with the backstory and like where this all came about. It was really funny because I was with Sam Eilerton, who also helped me out with this movie. He obviously edited it, and he was one of the camera operators on the film, and basically a producer in his own right. We were at the bar for this like event, and it wasn't even near the event. It was a little bit offset. It was like a restaurant kind of off to the side, and the event was at a hotel. And I was just sitting at the bar, like waiting for this thing to start. And these guys come up to me, and they're like, "Are you Tom Denucci?" And I'm like a little reluctant. I'm like, "Yes." I'm like, "Where's this going?" They're like, "Hey, yeah, listen, we follow you on Facebook, and it's so cool to meet you. And I'm like, oh, all right. They're like, yeah, and I figured, or I'm like, all right, I put two and two together. I'm like, you guys going to the film event later? They're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, cool. Hey, we got this screenplay. We'd love for you to read it. And you guys get it. I mean, like, that's something that I hear quite a bit. You know, that's like, obviously, everybody wants to get their foot in the door. So I've heard that line before.
Right.
So I'm kind of like, all right, guys, yeah, we'll meet up inside. And then, we did this event, and I'd seen them there, and seemed like friendly enough guys. Then I did, like, another event, and they showed up there. I'm like, are these guys stalking me? What the hell's going on here?
They're following your events on Facebook.
And it was Glenn Jeffrey and Matt O'Connor, who I referred to at the time as the Cousins, because their production company was called Two Cousin Productions.
Okay.
So I'm like, these cousins keep popping up, man. All over the place, talking to Sam. Finally, they approached me on Facebook. They're like, write me a message. They're like, hey, we've got this script. And I said, look, guys, I don't really do that. That's not how this works. Like, when people have a script, they don't just, like, give it to me and I read it and I say, here's exactly what you got to do to make a movie. Because guess what? That's what I do for a living. Like, why would I tell you exactly what to do? That's literally a bunch of trade industry secrets, so to speak, and abilities that I've gained over 15 years of doing this and getting beat up and kicked around and having to, as they say, like, figure it out my own way. Like, I'm not just going to, like, sit down with some guy off the street and be like, oh, yeah, sure, come here. Let me show you how to produce this movie for free. Because, you're basically asking me to currently, right now, just by even having this conversation, by asking me to read your script and say, what do you think? You're already asking me to produce your movie for free. Because you're asking me for my creative expertise for nothing.
Right.
So, like, already I said, guys, that's not really how it works. Woodhaven Media is my company. I provide a consultation fee. If you want, you can sit down with me. I'll read your script, and I'll tell you what I think, what my true thoughts are. So to their credit, they did it. They bought the consultation package that I provide. And they sat down with me, and I read their script, and I said, look, guys, you have a horror movie here that's got some cool scenes, but, it's kind of disjointed, and we're going to talk about this, and for writers out there, this is something to be paying attention to. They were mixing a lot of mojos, and what that means is the story was at its heart basically a movie about a young girl who had some kind of mental issues, but they also had, like, a boogeyman type character. They also had, like, these idols, like, that were these little dolls that were in the house that were coming to life. They also had these, like, flashbacks that were, kind of like, dealing, like, almost like on the paranormal level. So it's like, guys, you gotta pick a
lane.
A thing. Yeah, you can't be like, let's combine every horror trope we've ever heard of and put it in one movie. And I basically said, look, let me offer you guys this. And again, this is all part of something that we started doing right back then. This is a few years ago. This was kind of one of the first cases where Woodhaven Media did this. We're like, look, this is what we can do for you. We negotiated on a price. I basically said, I'll come on, supervise the writing, but you guys need to hire another writer to work with you guys to kind of take this and maybe get rid of some of the mojos and just kind of pick one and really strengthen it. And work directly with you to find out, make sure that everything gets in there that you want. You write the movie that you want. It just gets surgically sewed together in such a way that, okay, this can be actually shot.
Right.
This goes from A to B. So I said, we'll get you that writer. And then also, you guys are trying to raise money, to make a feature. Make a trailer. You got to shoot a trailer. Did you ever consider that? They said, well, what's that? And I said, well, basically what you do is take your idea and narrow it down, way down, and make like a 2-minute, 3-minute little short teaser piece of like what it would be like. And I was like, this is not crazy money. Again, this kind of, we talked a little bit about this on the last episode.
Right.
I think it was like maybe $2 or $3 grand, something like that. They put together, these are two guys that, working full-time jobs, and, they've got families and they've got responsibilities, but they were like, we really want to invest this in ourselves. They put together a few grand, and they made this trailer. My production company came in, we shot it. It was pretty cool. It kind of like had some of the, remember we had said the script had some cool elements, so we shot some of those elements that we thought were the most exciting, the most interesting that we could pull off. And we cast some actors, and of course Mike Messier was one of these actors. We'll talk about him in a minute.
All right.
But basically we made this trailer. It was really cool. It was dark, it was scary. We shot it at this place called Eden Manor, which is this very kind of creepy looking.
Yeah, it's one of those creepy looking houses for sure.
Totally like fit the bill for, we need a creepy house to shoot this movie in. And I think Matt had a connection to somebody who was into real estate, and they were like, oh, there's this great bed and breakfast. It's like this big creepy place. And they were very like cool artsy people. They thought it was really kind of fun, so they let us shoot there. So we shot the trailer, and I said, now look, again, another thing that Woodhaven Media provided was, I said, part of this package, you guys need a social media presence of some kind. Like, you got to be on, you're not on Facebook, you don't have a website, nothing. So, like, if you're trying to raise money for your movie, well, it'd be nice to have a place to send people to,
right.
So that if we have a conversation in a coffee shop, or if I bump into you on the street, I could say, oh yeah, I'm working on this movie, and yeah, we're looking at, we're trying to raise funds, but actually, you know what? We got a Facebook page, check it out. You can even make cards, put your Facebook page right on the cards, start giving those out. So simple things like that sometimes you overlook when you're thinking about movies. You don't realize that, like, movies aren't that different than any other business that you're trying to get out there. Any other message that you're trying to send.
Right.
So you got a little movie, trying to raise money, make a website, make a cheap website, make a little Facebook page, costs you nothing, and then spend whatever it is, $50 at Staples, and get yourself some business cards. And that's a nice, easy way to one-on-one drive traffic to something. Like here,
right.
If you hand someone to something with a Facebook page, and you're right there with it, chances are they're going to take out their phone right there, and you can get them to follow it, like it, whatever. And these are the little things that you have to do in the beginning with a small entity to get it off the ground. So they did that stuff, and that's what was so great about Matt and Glenn. Like they were so fired up to do this. They followed the plan, like we had a plan, and they followed it to a T. And again, it wasn't for crazy money. It was, money that they wanted to invest in their company, and it was all very reasonable. So it was one of those things where now I said, all right, you gotta get a writer. Mike Messier was in the trailer. People really liked the trailer. Mike's a great writer. He was coming off of an award that he just won for a script that he had written. Mike talked to the guys, the cousins. They hit it off. And there you go. The three of them started collaborating very heavily on this script. And I was kind of there to, kind of attend some meetings and take a look at where they were going and make sure that the direction was heading where we needed to head. And we had a script that we could shoot in, I think we shot this movie in like 12 days.
Wow.
13 days.
Super short.
Yeah, so it was like, I had to kind of more keep an eye on, can we actually do this? That was kind of, not that I was neglecting the creative, but I was kind of just more worried about not putting Matt and Glenn in a situation where these guys lay it out on the line and we can't even do what we said we would do. That's my one thing. Like, always deliver what you say you can deliver. Never overpromise. There's no sense in that. When I first started making movies, not to go on a whole sidebar, but I was a big overpromiser, and I used to really try to like win people over with what I could do for them. Right. And I ended up like talking myself into writing checks my ass couldn't cash, and I've learned over the years it's so much better to underpromise and overdeliver.
Of course. And
be very realistic about everything and explain why. Don't just be negative Ned and be like, nah, you can't do that.
Right.
Explain why. Well, we can't do that because blah 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 and blah blah blah. Always provide your reasoning, but be very realistic with what you say you can actually do. So it was one of those things where Mike was writing the script. It was going in the direction that we could really do it. We needed a director. John Schermerhorn was taking interest in this. John Schermerhorn was a guy who was my first AD. If you're listening or watching and you don't know what a first AD is, basically it's the first assistant director, and what a lot of people don't realize is they're directly involved in making the schedule for how you're going to shoot the movie. They're like they're in the war room, like with the map out and like all the little army men on the map, and they're like, okay, we can shoot this Monday, and we're going to be all in this one location Monday, and then Tuesday we move to this building. We'll shoot everything in this building. So it's a very cerebral film position where like you very much coordinate and see the entire movie in your head before it even happens. And he had done that for me for a few films. He was my first AD on Army of the Damned and on Almost Mercy. So I'd always told him, like, if the opportunity comes for me to give you a shot to direct, because I knew that was his dream, I'm going to give it to you. This movie came along. I didn't feel the project was right for me to direct at the time. I wanted to see, what John could do and give him his opportunity. He certainly earned it at that point. And John became the director, started working with Matt and Glenn on the creative side of things, and Mike, and, getting the script where it's got to get to. But there was still one big problem, and that was, all right, Matt and Glenn were willing to put up some money to make this thing, but not enough money to shoot an entire feature film and all this stuff. So where does the rest of the money come from? That was the big thing. And this is where Matt and Glenn got very, very unique and creative, and it was very cool to see. And they did everything from what we talked about, like, just the simple stuff, like make a business card and go door to door with like your business cards and fun giveaway, like stickers and stuff. And, hi, we're making a movie. We're your neighborhood movie guys. And you know what? Some people gave him $20. Some people gave him $50.
Wow, that's what's up.
They raised thousands of dollars like that. And again, any one of these things that I'm telling you, no one of these things is going to put you in the end zone. But it's a 10-yard pass here. Right. It's a 5-yard dump off there. And then once in a while, you break it off for a big gain, and you do find that big check. Oh, shit, now we're in field goal range. And then next thing you know it, you're there. And that's kind of what these guys did. Some of those unique maneuvers were Funny for Funds. Have you ever heard of Funny for Funds? All right, so if you haven't heard of Funny for Funds, I'm going to give them a quick plug for free. They haven't given us a damn thing. And I'm just going to say, it's a very cool service that they provide. Funny for Funds, and guys, at Funny for Funds, if I mess this up, I'm sorry, but this is an impromptu plug, so we're doing the best we can. Basically what they do is, it's a group of comedians that you pick the venue, and they show up, and they will basically entertain your people, and that's how you get people to show up, and they give money. Basically, you can donate things, they have raffles. So it's basically like you're co-producing a stand-up comedy act, and you invite all your friends and family, and it's all with the intent to raise money for a cause. Now, they do everything for charity. A lot of it's charitable events and things like that. And it's usually, I'm pretty sure that's like what most of the people do. It's usually for
like cancer. Or
grandma
something.
Needs an operation or whatever. Like we got to get this thing going, and you put on a Funny for Funds, and people come out, and it's a great event. They have a night to celebrate, have some laughs, and ultimately donate money to a cause. Well, Glenn and Matt were like, well, shit, we could do this
to raise money for the movie.
Raise money for our movie, and it kind of makes sense. Comedies and entertainment, a form of entertainment, and movies a form of entertainment. It's a nice little 2 and 2, and so sure enough, they started putting on these Funny for Fun shows. And I think they did like a few of them, and one of them was it's currently called the GAM Theater in Warwick.
Oh, okay,
it used to be the Rhode Island Auditorium. To sound like a true Rhode Islander, it used to be. Or the Ocean State Auditorium, something like that.
I don't know.
It's near the airport, and it's a great venue. It's huge. Talking like I'm guessing, but definitely like in the hundreds. Probably like a house of 200 to 400 people. And, it's a big venue, and they filled it up. They sold it out, and they had this massive comedy show, and they raised like enough to buy a car from that one event.
Wow. A
small car. A used car.
But still.
But a car, damn it!
It's a car.
Yeah, and basically it's one of those things where they got this money together, and then they had about a third of it, probably. And then, of course, there were some financiers that came in, some people that were willing to, write some bigger checks in the upwards of, $10,000 and in that neighborhood. And then finally they got about through all these methods in probably 6 months' time, not a long time, 6 months or so.
It's pretty fast.
Pretty quick. Before you know it, they had about half the money.
Wow.
And then, here's a little producing lesson. There's so many different ways to make a movie and raise the funds. There's all sorts of negative output deals and, sell a movie based on the cast and a certain script at a certain budget. And there's all these different formulas, right? Enter Richard Switzer, my dear friend. I call him my brother. He's like my little brother, and we're kind of we've been really close, making a lot of movies for a while now, and I've learned a lot from him. I like to think he's learned a couple things from me, and he's the guy that I go to when I have a movie like this, and I kind of said, Richard, listen, like, what do you think I should do here? I got this movie. It's a pretty cool horror script, and I've got half the funding, and is there anything that you can do? You think you have any potential deals out there? And of course he knew about this company called HMB that I had heard about. I think at this time I might have even I had done a movie with HMB, so it's kind of, I'm thinking back, it was a long time ago now. It was a few years ago, and we've talked about this on the show before. Like, you do a lot of movies, they all kind of blur into each other. So Richard was like, you know what? I think this is something that HMB might want. And I'm like, really? That's Hollywood Media Bridge. That's what they are. That's the H, the M, and the B. So we contact them, and Richard gets on the phone with them, and basically there was some kind of a deal that was arranged. I don't really know all the particulars at this time. I don't want to misspeak, but it was one of those things where they kind of put up half the budget, provided that they get the foreign territory, or they own the world. It's called. Okay. The terms are, we'll give you half the budget, we own the world, which means, sounds like a pretty big deal, right, to own the world. Right. But it really just means, you own, like, the foreign territories and things like that, and, puts them in a strong position, obviously. Right. But Matt and Glenn were smart, because they were like, well, hey, we have no position right now. We have half the money to do what? You're not going to give the money back. Right. And it really is one of those things where I know what people are thinking, well, why don't you just scale the budget back? It's impossible. You can't scale the budget back. It was literally Anders Manor, or I did it again. That's twice. We're going to keep the count going.
We're going to keep the counter going.
The Manor was done for such a low budget that I remember thinking, I do notes before each show, and I actually wrote this down. Like, we could never replicate this again. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be able to get away with it. For where my career is now compared to where it was in terms of, like, people did us things that, like, favors that, like, you just can't get away with, meaning, like, people willing to, like, waive a certain wage because, like, we just couldn't afford that, and they knew it going into things, and it's like, like, we had a hair and makeup team, Gina and Gianna, and they're awesome, and they've worked with me in the past. I was very honest with them, and our whole production team, Matt and Glenn, was like, hey, look, this is the rate. It's a one-person job. It's really all we can do. And they were, so into just the art of making films, and they loved working on movies and liked working with us. And they were like, all right, you know what? Never again, right? But we'll split the rate, and we'll show up. And again, like, I don't condone that. That's not something that I'm trying to do, and it sounds, like, awful. Like, what do you mean? Like, they got screwed half of their rate. And it's like, everybody knew the deal going into things, but sometimes when you're making a low-budget independent film, right, you gotta ask for some favors, and you gotta work with people that are friends with you, that are willing to go that extra mile, because, hey, you know what? It's their first or second movie, too. They're trying to build a resume. They're trying to, right, they have something to gain from it, too. And that's kind of the skin in the game that they're willing to put in, So there was a lot of that we could never replicate again. So it wasn't as simple as, hey, Matt, Glenn, you guys have half the money, just go make kind of half the movie. It's like, no, because then you don't get the star, then you don't get Kevin Nash, you don't get Rachel True, you don't get Sully Erna, you don't get Michael Bennett, So it's one of those things where it is an all or nothing kind of thing. They weren't going to go back to the 1,000 individual people that might have given them money, or a few hundred people. Say, hey, here's your $20, here's your $50, here's your $100. They're not going to do that.
They're kind of pot committed at this point.
They're pot committed. That's a great way to put it. They're pot committed. They got to make that call, So that they come in with this, pretty firm deal, but a deal nonetheless. And HMB is now involved. Our movie's 100% greenlit. I think at the time, our production funds, obviously you spend money on post, so this isn't including post. But what we had to make the movie was probably like $80,000, And then I think the cast and the crew probably chewed up another, more than half of that. So if you look at like what we really had to just make the movie dollars to donuts, like, actually buying things, if you were to add up every pencil that was purchased by production or whatever, you're talking probably only like 25 grand, 20 grand maybe.
Wow.
So it's like, when you look at this movie, you can say what you want, but like, it's not a lot of money to make a movie of that magnitude with that kind of size and scope. Movies are funny. They're subjective. People are going to like them. Some people aren't going to like them. Some people are going to be completely indifferent and be like, no, great, what are we eating for dinner? They don't care.
Right.
So it's like, that's why it's like sometimes I try not to say like good movie, bad movie, and sometimes it's just like, you made a movie. So they were able to pull that off. So Matt and Glenn went from having a little idea that was just, hey, tracking me down in a bar somewhere, to what do I do with this idea, to, okay, well, you definitely have to flesh it out a little more and, put some more meat on this bone and, make the stories connect, remove some of the mojos. You probably want to, okay, you're not going to write a check for 150 grand right now, right? Right. So you're going to need to raise money, right? Definitely. So you're probably going to want to shoot a trailer, shoot a 2-3 minute trailer. That way, there's your calling card. There's your, hey, this is my trailer. This is kind of like a visual concept of what we want to go make. So it's like, I did this with $2,000. I'm the one I'm holding it. I guess I have some futuristic. This is a futuristic device that actually holographically projects your movie. So like, I got this movie right here. We did this for $2,000. Give me more money. Imagine what I could do. That's the age-old formula to raise money in movies. So they got their little trailer, got their trailer made, got people excited, started raising money, unique approaches. Then they had enough money where, it was like, oh, that ship's big enough to be on our radar. Oh, okay, yes, we'll contact them. Because like if we had no money, HMB wouldn't want to be involved. They probably wouldn't have wanted to front all the money.
Right.
Because now it's a risk. It's a much bigger risk for them. You know what I mean? Now they're writing a check that's 2 times the size to get the same thing. They ain't gonna do that. And they know, like, we can write half the size of check and still get the world. So that was kind of the idea behind that. So before you know it, like, we had a deal. We were making a movie, and we started casting, and casting was a lot of fun because I brought on some. Anytime I make a movie, I usually figure out, like, I got those go-to guys. Right. People like David Gear. You hear that name all the time. David Gear was involved in this one. And David's big addition on this one was Kevin Nash. David had made a movie called Blue Line, which it actually came out. It's called The Assault, though. They changed the name of it on us.
Okay.
But there's a movie called The Assault with Kevin Nash. David and Nash had a relationship. So it was one of those things where sometimes it's easier and you can avoid some channels. Sometimes you can go around the agents and stuff, and not that you're trying to do anything underhanded. It's just easier to get to them and get an actual read on whether or not this person's going to really want to do this. If you're friends with them. Right. So, hey, Dave, can you put this in front of Nash, have him read it and see what he thinks? And sure, no problem. And yeah, he'll do it. And, he was willing to do it. And we really appreciate Kevin for, coming on board and doing a part that is very different than a lot of the stuff that he plays, and I think that's what he liked about it. You Kevin Nash, you think of him, He's a wrestler.
Right.
He's huge. He's jacked up. You're thinking fight scene. You're thinking biker. You're thinking mob boss. Russian
henchmen. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not thinking, hippie, commune, true believer dude. And he got to play this, basically like this hippie healer. Part of this traveling commune called the True Believers. They show up. They put on an ice cream social. And he does a little healing action. It was a fun role for him. Rachel True was cool to bring into the movie. Fans out there of The Craft would know Rachel True. She's the light as a feather. She levitates. They do like a spell on her, and she like floats. Classic, iconic 90s coming of age cinema right there. I did a convention with Rachel True where it was called Rock and Shock. By the way, quick R.I.P. to Rock and Shock. It was a great horror convention in Worcester, Massachusetts, out of the DCU Center. Ran for, 12 years, 10 to 12 years, and they just announced they're not going to do it anymore. And I had a lot of fun at that show. We premiered a couple of my movies there, and the reason why I mention it, I met Rachel True there. It was one of those things where I was promoting Almost Mercy. My booth was here, her booth was right there. She was a neighbor of mine, and, she was really cool. You can't help but bullshit back and forth throughout the day with your convention neighbor, and kind of hit it off, and I followed her on Twitter, and she followed me back, and it was cool, and we did do the whole, like, oh, you're an actress, I'm a director, yeah, we should have each other's information in case maybe something comes up, and then sure enough, we had this role for this psychiatrist who kind of sets up the story for us, and then comes back again at the end. And it was a nice sort of efficient part. We could shoot in and out in 2 days. So Rachel came in for that. I reached out to her, and we went back and forth. And again, sometimes it's great when you don't have to do the whole agency thing, and you can just shoot a little direct message on Twitter and be like, "Hey, I got this movie. Not sure if this is even something you'd want to do, but what do you think?" So that was fun. And then, of course, we talked about Mike Bennett. There were the movie has these woodsmen, these like kind of hunter dudes in the movie, and they kind of provide like a little bit of comedy for us. And I just wanted burly men of the wilderness. And of course, Mike Bennett's a big jacked up dude, and his character actually has a fight scene too. Mike's a pro wrestler, so fight scenes come naturally to him. He can do just about any stunt. As they say, show it to him once, and he's like, got it. And he's, the physicality's there, and he's also, like I said, he's very funny, sharp sense of humor, fun to have around, and these Baton boys were kind of goofy characters and fun to play. So Mike came in, and he did that, and Sully Erna, who I called up kind of out of the blue, and Sully's one of those guys who you make a lot of acquaintances in this business over the years.
Right.
You really do. And it's great to have them all. And I could call a lot of them. And, if something's going on, they'll answer me eventually. But Sully is definitely one of the few that I consider a true friend. And someone that, we actually do periodically check on each other and just say what's up. And, if he's in town, I'll find a way to meet up with him, and vice versa. And I know he loves acting. It's just like, always been kind of a thing that he just loves to do. And he's got so much charisma naturally that he can do kind of a lot of different things. So I was like, you know what? It might be fun for Sully to like put on a little bit of a southern accent and play one of these redneck Baton boys up from Virginia, and see what he can do, get that accent going. And so I just called him up. I was like, hey man, this is totally random. Would you like to play a redneck in this horror movie? And you get to kind of get down with it. You're like, come on now, I'll do that for you. And we made it so that, made it worth his while, and got him a nice day rate and had him come up. And I think he drove. That's Sully's a New Englander.
Right.
So Sully just, that's the cool thing about Sully, man. He's a star, He's a
bona fide
star. he'll get in his car and he'll just drive to set by himself 2-3 hours. And just show up like, oh, no, this place is fucking cool. And it's just like, he's just such a refreshing guy to be around, because I've been around so many stars and celebrities that, like, you'd be around him for 5 minutes and you'd be like, oh, God. You know, like, you've had enough.
Right.
With Sully, it's like you're hanging out with one of your friends, you know, from just a guy from the neighborhood, you know. And it's refreshing to be around someone who's famous and can still be that grounded.
Yeah, he gives off like a really good energy too, that comes through in his acting.
Yeah, he had a couple of really funny scenes in this one that were improv. You can imagine a lot of that stuff that he was doing was kind of just, you know, I'd tell him, hey Sully, we want you to kind of do this and go over there and, you know, maybe do something funny with that statue, you know, whatever.
Right.
And he'd kind of just do his own thing. I always like to do that, you know, especially certain actors take to it better than others, and you can kind of feel that out just by how they prepare. But certain actors will naturally want to play a little bit more, and whenever I notice that, I'm always like trying to get it done by the book, and then I'm trying to give them one at the end where it's like, all right, we did it the way it's written. Now see that statue over there? I want you to go take a piss next to it and pretend that you're pissing with the statue or whatever. You know, we'll make something up. A lot of times it doesn't work. A lot of times it doesn't make the cut. Sometimes it does, and that's when you get that, like, rare piece of gold. You're like, God damn, that was funny. I'm glad we did that.
Right.
And there's that old thing, too, is an old mantra. I don't know if it's an old mantra, but we'll say it is. If it's funny on set, and it makes you laugh hysterically, chances are
it's gonna be funny
it'll be funny in the movie. That doesn't always work right. You know, sometimes you're tired, and it's like you're laughing on set because it's tired funny. But usually if, like, you know, everybody on set's splitting their sides, like, that's got to be at least halfway decent, right?
Right.
Our official mascot of the Porch just entered, Larry.
Hey, Larry.
Not sure if he'll get up into the frame here, but he likes to come on the show and be featured once in a while. So, basically, we got this really cool cast together. I'm going to keep going down the list. Tanya Lynch has been in a lot of our films in the past. We had this character for the mom who needed to kind of be one of these moms who kind of is trying to be fun and hip and be the cool mom, yet she's still aware that her daughter's potentially a ticking time bomb. And I knew that Tanya would nail that. You know, she's kind of got this vibrance about her that's, you know, she's always smiling and like kind of one of those people that, like, naturally she always brings kind of the mood up in the room. And I kind of figured, like, this character, you'd want someone like that, you know, like trying to always, like,
see the positive,
make the daughter happy, and, you know, and then, you know, Tanya Lynch is in there, and Eric Lutz is another guy who Eric Lutz has been involved, but a lot of people know him from there was a big show, part of the must-see TV 90s lineup, Caroline in the City. Remember that show?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, well, Eric played a reoccurring character on that show. He was like the neighbor guy, you know, like, you know, she lives in like an apartment.
Right.
And Eric did like the bulk of that series, and great actor who just did a lot of work in LA and happens to be from Rhode Island. And I remember calling him up, and we met at, you know, there's a lot of these great film events that the Rhode Island Film Commission puts on. Shout out to Steve Feinberg. And it's a great chance to kind of rub shoulders with people that you didn't even realize were maybe from Rhode Island that have done a lot of cool things in the industry. And Eric's one of those guys that I'd met him a long time ago at one of those kind of things and wanted to work with him, and finally this kind of came up, and I was like, hey, I remember, low budget movie. Like, hey, if we could fly you into Rhode Island, do you have a place to stay here for free while you're here? And he's like, yes, of course, I can find a place to hang my hat, or, you know, excellent. Well, I might have something for you if you like it, you know. And
right.
That started the conversation, and Eric was willing to, you know, obviously we flew him out here, but he was willing to work as a local, which was cool. We appreciate that. And he played this, you know, cool dad who, you know, trying to just have a good time and realizes that, you know, this fun family weekend is about to get really nasty, and he's got this fun scene where he's decides to go and take a little toke to take the edge off of the day, and things go horribly wrong for him. I don't want to give it away, but horribly wrong. You always got to keep an eye on your surroundings if you're in a horror movie. If you see an area that looks like a potential target,
stay away from that area.
Avoid it. Go. Sometimes you think you want to be in the well-lit areas. Bullshit.
No.
You want to be in the darker areas. If it's well-lit, then you know that the camera crew that's filming the horror movie could kill you easily. So you want to avoid those areas. So we had a nice cast put together. Mike Zuccola, worked with him on a bunch of films. We talk about him, I feel like, every episode almost.
Just about.
He's a really funny guy. He had a cool part in this. Danielle Goulden, who was also in Almost Mercy. They play brother and sister. She's great in this movie, too, kind of just playing like that obnoxious, sister-type character that, great, I'm stuck on a vacation with this person, be miserable. And then, of course, Christina Robinson, who was a star on Dexter. She was the little girl on Dexter.
Yeah.
Did a lot of years on that show and kind of grew up on that show. It was basically like a baby on it, and then up to when she was a little girl. So she was a child actress, and here she is, kind of playing the lead now. And I gotta say, she had to do it was a big range of emotions that she had to play in this one, and she really crushed it. And we've talked about this before on the show. Movies like this, to be an actor on it, it's not like what you think. You're not getting the trailers. You're not getting the, you have 3 personal assistants bringing you sushi around the clock. Like, it's not like that. Like, nobody's carrying your umbrella for you when you walk outside. It's very down and dirty. It's like, it's a low-budget movie. And, when you're the lead in one of those movies, like Christina was, you got to go through a lot. Long hours. It's cold sometimes, and naturally, listen, we're always going to make it as comfortable as we can.
Right.
But sometimes it's just, it's going to rain sometimes. You know what I mean? And you can't avoid that. And Christina, again, I don't think complained once. Like, I don't think I remember her getting frustrated. And again, she's got to cry and be emotional in all these difficult situations and deal with a lot of difficult content. Never once do I remember her, having any kind of, negativity brought with her. So she was really cool, and that's what you want out of your lead,
Right.
That's what you hope and pray for, that your lead is going to be, the quarterback, and just,
right,
grit and bear through everything and get it done. And they kind of set the tone. If Christina is the lead in this movie, and if she's not complaining about having to work that 13th hour or whatever it is, well then why should anybody
nobody else will complain either.
Exactly. And also, one more shout out to Christina, she was living at the Manor, so we should probably, I think we can segue into,
and she stayed there, and
she stayed there, yeah, and that was
creepy as bed and breakfast.
That was like part of her, she wanted to get the feeling of what it's like to be at this place, and it really was a bizarre kind of place. It's kind of funny because it's no longer in existence, but at the time it was a bed and breakfast. Had a lot of rooms. Probably had, I think, 6 different rooms that you could rent, and 2 of them were occupied during the whole shoot. And then there was a 3rd floor where the family lived. So it really was like this Addams Family kind of deal. And it was one of those things where we made a deal with them. We're like, all right, well, you have 4 rooms available. We happen to need 3 rooms, plus we need a production room where, rent that out just to be like our central hub that we're not shooting in. So we made a great deal with them for a location. In addition to that, we put up our actors there. We put up Christina there. And we put up our, I believe, our gaffer, our sound person, grip. So a little bit of combo job there. We were shooting there. We had some crew members living there. We had some cast living there. And I remember hearing some of the stories. Some of the people will tell you, yeah, whatever. Whether you believe it or not, they were like, "This place is fucking haunted. It's freaking me out. We're hearing shit at night." I'm like, "You probably just hear it. There's a family that lives above you. You're not. It's not a specter. It's a guy,
it could be
some guy getting a cereal at 1 in the morning. It could be. It could be. It could be a ghost. But whatever it was, I think it was good for Christina. It kept her in that kind of eerie environment." And it was nice too. It was in South County, so if you're a Rhode Islander, you know that's, they weren't too far from Newport. They would take their little occasional rides down to Newport, and it was kind of fun for her. I think she had a good time with the movie. So yeah, that was the cast, and it's an interesting thing. Anytime you got to make a movie in 12 days, it's just you're cranking the whole time. So we didn't have a lot of time to waste, but it got done.
That's what's up. It doesn't feel like it took only 12 days, though. It came out really...
Yeah, we did. We had a 13th day. During production, there was a situation where basically we shot this whole movie, and, we had our ups and downs. We had some situations with the neighbor. We had there was the next-door neighbor that was out of his mind. He was a big kind of gun-toting kind of.
Oh shit!
He could have played one of the rednecks that I was telling you about. Yeah, he flipped out on us one night, and we got some exterior lights, but they're not pointed at his house. And he just flipped out one night. He comes stumbling across, probably drunk. The hell's going on out here? Looks like a goddamn Walmart parking lot, and I can't get any sleep with these cars driving up and down, and Glenn, one of our producers, quickly dispatched the situation and was like, "Oh, calm down. It's all good." And you gotta have... That's another thing about making movies, people don't realize when you're a producer in a film, like, a lot of it really is just, like, people skills,
Right.
Like, can you... When angry, drunk neighbor who's, 60, 65 years old, wants to go to bed, wants to watch TV, is pissed off, about to call the police. When this guy comes storming over, flipping out at you, do you have the ability to tame the lion,
right,
and get it so that he can calm down and go back inside, not call the police, and be cool? Like, they don't teach you that in film school. There's no class for that. That's just something that you have to learn from experience, and that's why it's always nice to have an elder statesman on the production crew, somebody with some grays in their hair that you can send out. And sometimes when people see a bunch of kids,
oh right, yeah,
you see a bunch of 20-somethings and young-looking 30-somethings. That was a joke. You're supposed to laugh. That was me. When you see people like that, you get a little like, what's going on over here? So if you get the guy with the gray hair, if he goes out there and he says, "Oh no, this is all legitimate," people might be less likely to call the police on you. It's just what I've... Grays repel the police.
Excellent.
Sometimes maybe as a movie, maybe young people should just hire an old guy to be around. Maybe like a clipboard or something.
Right.
And if the cops come, send him out. And he just be your representative to assure you that these aren't damn hooligans.
Right.
Running amok with cameras. The 12 days went by pretty quick. We had some really cool... We should talk about some of the special effects. We spent a lot of time getting that look right for this boogeyman character. Akamana, he was called. He was
he had a name?
The Demon.
Okay.
The Demon, yeah. Did you watch this movie?
I did.
He's like, I swear I watched it.
I did. I watched it. I watched half of it last night, and then I watched the other half before I got over here.
He does the two parts. It's like to be continued.
Well, yeah, because if I watch them on my couch, I'm not going to be awake.
You won't last too long.
No.
Yeah, so basically, the Demon was put together by Julie Lashane. She's a really great special effects makeup artist. And this thing's very expensive. You have no idea how much money this thing costs to put together. You see it in the movie, and you're like, what? Like, that's it? Not that you'd say that's it, because it looks really cool. But even still, like, people don't realize the amount of money that goes into, like, that kind of latex, that type of a mask that could be applied to a person and worn, you know, for an extended period of time, through sweat, the application. And that thing took hours to put on, believe it or not. And just as long as it takes to put on, takes to remove at the end of the night.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't just, like, it's not just like, okay, guys, good night, and you're back to this. You know, it's like, there's certain materials certain creams and stuff that need to be applied to your face to take it off properly, and, you know, don't want to hurt the actor, don't want to rip their skin off, and you really do have to literally glue some of these pieces. So, that's one of those things where I think when people watch a movie, they'll never realize, like, the amount of time and effort that goes into, like, just making that boogeyman look like a boogeyman. You know, it's a pretty incredible process. And Julie warned us, too. She basically said, like, hey, guys, listen, we're working with a budget here. We all know that. This face is going to last for 4 days. Even maybe 3. On the 3rd day, it's going to start to deteriorate. And you're going to start to lose it. And sure enough, she was right on the money. Like, towards the end of day 3, it really started to, like, fall apart. Like, just, you know, from being on for countless hours, multiple days. And obviously, gets back to the first AD. We talked about that earlier.
Right.
You got to schedule the movie so that, like, all right, we're doing all the demon stuff in this 3 or 4 day stretch. Because otherwise, your mask isn't even going to be...
Right.
in shape, you know what I mean? It's only going to last a little while. And the mask costs, well, I tell you, it's thousands of dollars. So it's like, you know, that's
for 4 days.
It's one of your biggest items in the budget, really. You know, in a movie like this, you know, when I told you how much we had to really shoot the movie and spend on things, that's like a big portion of it, you know?
Right.
But if you don't have a believable looking demon, get out. You know, don't even try making a demon movie. And on the trailer, which maybe I'll play that maybe I'll dig up the original trailer, put it on my Facebook page, at Tom Denucci, writer-director. The original trailer, and it was creepier, this demon character was almost naked. Like, he had like a little, like, loincloth kind of deal on, but his whole body was like white, powdery, that same white, powdery look of the face. The whole body was like that, and he had these long claws. But Julie was basically like, we just don't have the time and money to do that every day. You know, we could do that for a trailer,
right,
if it's 1 day, but to do that and repeat that process 4 days and go through all that material, we just can't do it. So we had to compromise a little bit, and that's why Akamana is wearing clothes in the movie. And so in the original one, you'll see he doesn't have any clothes, and it is a little creepier of a look. It's just like, what the fuck is that? You know, figure, nude, creepy figure with lanky arms, and then in the, you know, this one he's got a little bit of a suit, kind of. He's got this like.
He's all dressed up for the killing.
Yeah, he's dressed up for the appearance, and it's gonna have a little bit of a throwback look to it. Also, speaking of throwback, there's a really great flashback in this movie with Armin Garrow, who he's an actor that's been in The Sopranos.
Right.
He's been in a lot of big movies. Great, powerful presence that this guy has, and you'll see him. He plays in the flashbacks. He plays like the grandfather that, you know, once ran the manor. And it was a cool, unique tidbit. Probably should have told this story earlier when we were talking about cast, but hey, it's a free flowing kind of thing sometimes. But I remember those lines. If you watch the movie, he sings a song in it.
Right.
He kind of sings this, war anthem, whatever you want to call it. That was actually just written lines of dialogue at first.
Oh, I was going to ask if that was like an actual, like, military type tune, or did you write that?
No, that was Armin just kind of came to me, I think it was over the phone, like the day before, and he was like, "Hey Tom, I've been reading my dialogue, and as an exercise to remember it, I've been singing it like a song, but I think it sounds really cool. What do you think of this? Can I sing it for you?" I'm like, "Sure." And I heard it, and I was like, "Whoa, that's awesome." And I remember he did it that day it was one of those things where once in a while it's like it's like sold out show at the Monitor.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Everybody's gathered.
Yeah, like everybody was watching him sing this song, and very compelling stuff. We probably, in hindsight, shot that scene too many times because we were all just like digging the song and like liking it. But I knew that day, like Armin worked one day, and I knew that day, like we had time, like we had built it in the schedule, so I was like, that was going to be the Armin Garrow show that day. Just let him play, let him do his thing, and we can spend our time with this stuff. I'm glad we did, because that stuff looks really cool. I really like the flashbacks. Little production tidbit, we actually did shoot a 13th day because we got all the way through this thing. We showed the original cut, and HMB was trying to get the movie sold to Lionsgate, which they eventually did. But one of the notes was, this thing needs a little more gore. We were trying to make a psychological movie, without a lot of the blood and guts.
Okay. Yeah.
Also, we couldn't afford the blood and guts.
You've had a lot of blood and guts.
Couldn't really afford them at first. But then we found some new methods to make the blood and guts a little more inexpensive. And aside from that, we got some more money from H&B to put on a one-day reshoot. So there's a scene where there's like a flashback where like, the Mike Messier's character, one of the redneck Baton boys, he like rips this girl's throat out as like a fantasy in his mind, and then it like flashes and like he didn't actually rip her throat out. That whole thing was kind of written as, how do I just like insert blood and guts into this movie? We've already shot everything. Well, I've got Mike Messier around. Chelsea Vale played the woman who gets her throat unfortunately ripped out. I knew that they were available. I brought them in, and we shot that scene, and it added a little bit more of that, edgy feel to that part of the movie. And also, while we had the cameras up and rolling, I brought Danielle Golden back, and I brought Mike Bennett back. We shot a scene together with them. Mike Zuccola came back. They shot a scene together. So I was actually able to, like, piece together a couple of scenes that felt... a couple of moments that felt needed a little bit more. I was able to get that all done in that one extra day. So that was, like, the 13th day. The secret 13th day that, took place, like, 6 months, or maybe even 8 months after we shot the original stuff.
Oh, wow.
It was a while. It was probably maybe 6 months. I think we shot this in November, and I think that stuff was shot in May, April, May. So it was a little bit down the road. But it was a pretty crazy experience. Making a movie in November, you never know what you're gonna get. I think it was like the end of October. It was end of October, early November. So we had some warm days, and we had some freezing cold days. Of course, the one day where we had all those extras out, the True Believer Day, it was like one of the coldest days of the year. We had extras dressed like hippies, wearing shorts and stuff like that. Shout out to Don Martone, my friend. Who,
oh yeah.
I was like, hey. He
was pushing the ice cream cart.
Can you come? And because Don's got this great long hair, and we need hippies. That's kind of a nice hippie attribute, that long hair. And he grew out a beard, and I was like, yeah, wear some like goofy jean shorts. It'll be funny. And of course, it's like 32 degrees that day. He's like, thanks for the shorts idea. But it was the fun things that you go through. You go through that kind of thing. So post came along. We started editing the movie. Sam Eilertson cut this one together. We edited right in the other room over there. And we like to do that a lot of times. A lot of directors will cut the movie right in their house. Just get that computer out. That's the amazing thing, man. I mean, you edit a movie, you get a computer, you get a monitor like this. All right, we got an editing studio now. We can put this anywhere. So we like to do it from here. We got our own little world that we've created. So we were cutting that thing up and put it together really quick, and once we added those additional scenes that we were talking about, HMB signed off on it. Lionsgate eventually acquired the film and put it out, and it came out in 2018, October of 2018, I believe, right around Halloween. Made sense. Makes sense to throw that one out there. During the Halloween season, get a little horror movie out there. Are we good over there?
Yeah, we're good.
But I got scared for a second.
Nah, we're excellent. As always.
We're rocking and rolling. So really, what this comes down to is this movie's all about a formula for taking your idea and starting very small and kind of building some momentum with different ideas, different tactics, getting creative, understanding that when you raise money for a movie, it's not always going to come from one place. Very rarely are you going to get just one investor who comes along and says, I'm going to, put my name here. Where do I sign? I'm going to give you the big check for everything.
Right.
These guys realize that, all right, well, we don't really have a track record of any kind, but what we do have is ambition and, the time that we can put in to get this thing off the ground. And that's what they did. They put in a ton of time. I mean, shout out to Matt and Glenn's family. And again, these are guys who have kids, and, the whole deal, and they've supported them and, put this time in. Those guys both missed a lot of work,
Right.
Again, we're talking guys with day jobs and things like that. Major, actual,
like regular,
real deal responsibilities, and they've carved it out in their schedule to make this happen, and like I said, got a lot of support from their families and ended up making their dream come true. So it's one of those things where it's a major accomplishment to get any movie made, and this is just another one of those examples where just because you've never made a movie, just because you feel like you're a little too old to get started into something new, whatever that is, like, this is one of those examples where, like, all that's bullshit.
Right. If you want to do it, you just got to do it.
You just have to do it. Exactly. But yeah, what was your take on the movie?
It was interesting. It was very interesting. Like, it went in a couple of different directions. It felt like, and then at the end, I was like, wait, like, who was the actual killer? Was it this, like, weird demon? Was the girl the demon? Was she killing everybody? And then it was like a dream. Because at the end, I was like, wait, she buried everybody, but then did she paint the house?
No. Is there a house painting scene?
No, but it looked like a different front at the end. But
maybe it's just because it's at a different time of day.
Maybe.
Yeah. No, the house I think it's like a green color.
Okay.
But time was supposed to have passed a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right.
A year or so, 9 months, whatever.
She was all settled into
her new lifestyle,
her new creepy house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of times movies like this, not by any means comparing this movie to The Shining, because that's a movie that's on a pedestal all of its own, and it's a laugh to even compare almost anything to The Shining. It's one of my favorite movies. But, I mean, look at the ending of The Shining, like, what really happened there, It's one of these things where a lot of times a psychological film like this, it's okay to be left with a thought of, wait a minute. And, it's to the eye of the beholder of what may have or not have happened, and, it's kind of, I think that's what the ultimate kind of goal was for everybody in the writing room,
Right.
But,
I thought it was pretty decent, though. It wasn't terrible. I didn't turn it off and, like, I wasn't like, oh, it's trash, and I have to force myself.
That's going to be on the DVD. It was not trash.
It was not trash.
I I didn't have to force myself.
Yeah, to me, that's a decent movie. I didn't have to force myself to watch it. Like, I got to watch this because I got to be able to talk about it.
Right.
It's like when you read a book and you're just like, oh my God, this book sucks.
Right.
But you need it for
English class.
English class.
Yeah, it brings you right back to 10th grade.
Right.
Having to read, like, The Crucible or something. Now someone's going to message us and be like, I fucking love The Crucible.
Right. It's one of my favorite books ever.
It's one of the greatest pieces of literature. But yeah, this is, again, shout out to Matt and Glenn for taking their little idea, making it big, getting it out there. People, if you want to check out the movie, it's available on Amazon.
It is. That's where I got
Play.
it.
Is that where you watched it?
Yeah.
Was it Amazon Prime?
No, I had it. It's rentable.
Rentable.
Or you can purchase it.
Yes, purchase it. Yes. Yeah, it's out there, guys. You can check it out. It's got a cool trailer. This was actually one of the fun little tidbit about this movie. This is the first time I produced a movie that has the guy who does the trailer voices.
Oh, wow.
The guy.
Yeah. In a world, that guy.
That guy did the voiceover for this trailer. So I remember when it came out, I was like, it's the guy who does the voices. We got him. And then I was quickly like, all right, get the guy. And you can only hang your hat on that so long.
Well, yeah, but that's just cross it off the list.
It was fun. Yeah,
got the guy.
We did get that voiceover guy. But this one was fun. It really liked making it. We had a nice premiere for this movie when it came out. Like I said, it was right around Halloween, so it was a good time of year for it. And I think a couple things that I learned was, even with us trying to remove the mixing of the mojos, it's still going to be tough whenever you have a few people in a writing room assigned to a project, and you have a director who's also putting creative notes in there. And we were very flexible with John. We were like, hey, listen, you're going to be shooting this, so we're all ears for your creative input as well. And ultimately, if I can Monday morning quarterback the situation, I feel like you're always playing a compromising game when you have that many people involved in the creative stew.
Right.
Whereas, ultimately it is nice when there's just one or two people working on a creative vision. It's a lot easier than having to service everyone's, well, that's my favorite part. Oh, but that's my favorite part. Well, this is my favorite part. And I'm not saying there was a ton of that on this movie, because there really wasn't. I mean, there weren't a lot of arguments. Matt and Glenn are awesome. Mike is great to work with. Mike and I still have a lot of projects together. I just produced a movie with with Glenn. Matt was actually in it, did a little cameo.
Nice.
So these are great guys. We still work together. But no matter what, and I think if you ask them, they'd probably say the same thing, there's always going to be that little law of compromising that goes on when you have that many filters to go through.
Right.
Rather than just, hey guys, this is the vision, this is it. And I think inevitably the story may have still waned on a couple different mojos than it should have still. But again, you could critique any movie. We talked about this before.
Right.
What you like, what you don't like, what you're indifferent to. Fact of the matter is, we made a great movie, and we had a lot of fun.
It got picked up by Lionsgate, right? So
that wasn't too bad. It was fun to see that. It's always fun to see. You grow up seeing those iconic logos to these movie companies, and it's always fun to see that iconic Lionsgate logo right before your movie starts. I mean, nothing like seeing that. So I had a good time doing it. And what do you think? What's next? What's next for the Porch?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I think what we'll do next is probably gonna. I don't want to say that I've been avoiding it, but I think it's time that we do our Vault episode. I really do. There's a couple other directions that I could go in, but I think it's time. It's been a couple years now. Maybe we'll go into the Vault world next. But if it changes, we'll let you know. But I think as of now, next episode will be about the famous bonded vault heist that took place right in Providence, Rhode Island, where a band of unknown I guess you could call them, robbers, hoodlums, gangsters, many different words. Well, they walked out of a building with $30+ million in cash, coins, diamonds, jewelry, all kind of stuff. And it happened right here in Rhode Island. It's a movie that I made with, we had Don Johnson, Theo Rossi, Clive Standen, Samira Wiley. Great cast. Loved making that movie. Sean Ringgold. Chaz Palminteri. I could name people for at least 20 seconds.
Yeah, the cast was fantastic.
And, it was a great cast, and we had fun making it. Shot it all here in Rhode Island, so that's next time. But for now, take a look at the Manor. Go out, take a look-see. If you want a little scary movie, you want to see Kevin Nash in action. If you're a Godsmack fan, you want to see Sully Erna do his thing. There's a lot of different audiences that might find some appeal to this movie. Wrestling fans, might be into seeing Nash and Bennett. So check it out, and thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching our last episode. It's actually our most watched episode. I don't know if you took a look at that.
Oh, that's what's up. I haven't been on anything really.
Yeah, episode 8. For those of you who haven't seen it, go back and watch that. We talked about Wired for Sound. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being on the porch.
We'll check y'all out next time.